Hey, contact center, customer experience friends, welcome back to another episode of Contact Center Journeys. I'm super excited to be bringing on my guest, Lorne Wood. Lorne is the founder and managing director of Better Call Center QA. Welcome to the pod, Lorne.
Thank you so very much. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So, as always, the intent of Contact Center Journey is to inspire the next generation of CX and contact center professionals through sharing the stories of those that have come up in the industry. Who doesn't love a great origin story? We want to change the narrative in contact center and customer service jobs that there is no future. We have all personally met entrepreneurs that have come out of customer service jobs. I've worked in technology spaces, have started out as agents on the phone, junior level leaders, and worked their way up the ladder. There's never any sales pitches on contact center journeys, and the content is free for the audience to use. However, all we ask is that if you do use it, tag us, and of course, subscribe on YouTube and follow us on LinkedIn and listen to the podcast wherever you choose to listen it to. So for some background, real quick on Lorne, he brings over 30 years of experience in contact center, quality assurance, and business process outsourcing. Lorne leverages deep operational experiences and no-nonsense approach to fixing what tech alone can't, like leadership gaps, cultural drift, and underwhelming performance. Whether you're facing compliance headaches, attrition, or legacy QA tools that don't deliver, he helps contact center build QA programs that actually move the needle. So without further ado, Lorne, tell us how you got in the contact center space.
Well, you're never going to believe it. I never imagined in the whole world that I would end up working in a call center. Coming out of college, I thought they were probably the most miserable places that a person could ever want to work. But surprisingly, I joined one. My education, believe it or not, was in mental health. I was a certified crisis team manager, and I got a job on the evening shift of all things at a suicide hotline that served about 1.2 million people in 3-county radius. And man, I tell you, Fred, I thought I had problems. The heartaches and the things that I heard every single night sometimes just kept me awake. And there were nights when we couldn't save them all. And it was a very stressful job. And, in all of that, I had to help the people who were taking those calls to not let it get under their skin, to rise above it, and to do their very best to interact with people over the phone. And so I think there were like 3 things that I learned in that job that have never left me. First of all, there are some really great ways to interact with people over the phone. And there are also some very terrible ways. And the second thing I learned is that I actually had a knack for helping others get dramatically better at it. And the third thing I learned was I actually loved the challenge and decided that I would make a career out of it. So those were some frightful days. I felt every day when I left from work that I had somehow helped the world be a better place. But at the same time, I realized that that this little bit of the world wasn't going to be big enough for me. And if I wanted to make this a career, I was going to have to move forward into something bigger and probably get out of the nonprofit, world where I could make some money. So I went from saving lives on the crisis line, you're going to never believe it, to outbound telemarketing. All right.
Okay.
What a switch, right? So suddenly as a manager, I had quotas, I had compliance rules, I had clients to keep happy, supervisors and agents to coach. And, I did a pretty good job of that. I was actually kind of surprised that I was the only manager who didn't sit in their office all day. I just from my crisis team, experience, you had to be out in the middle of it, and I just carried that with me. So I was always out on the floor and usually had a report in my hand, and was talking to the agents and the supervisors and helping them get better at what they do. Um, well, it didn't take too long for them to decide that maybe I ought to be used in a bigger role. I was really excited to be moved to Seattle and to open up a brand new 300 seat call center. I was employee number one was the IT guy. I was employee number two. And we built that thing from nothing to a 300 seat call center with about 500 employees. Um, and it really challenged me, and my leadership style had to change quite a bit. I still spent a lot of time on the floor with the agents and the soups, kind of discussing the finer points and how to capture attention and win customers over, how to answer objections. I sat down and I took calls with them. Here, let me take one, and then you take one. Um, and I mentored supervisors on, how to act and how to lead. And here's the big thing, Fred, that this is the shift in my leadership style. Was I stopped using people to get work done, and I started using work to get people done. Right? If that makes any sense whatsoever. All right.
Absolutely.
So turning those daily tasks and into opportunities to build confidence and skills, and the work itself then became the training ground, right? Because I had all these new employees, right, who had never done this before, right? Supervisors who had never supervised, agents who had never agents, and coordinators who had never coordinated. So I gave everybody a chance to lead. I would take good performing agents off the phone and say, I need you to floor walk, all right, here for a while. All right. And they puffed out their chest, like it was just like the most exciting thing that ever happened to them. And they would take charge and they would lead, and I would stand back and watch. They would see me watching and I would nod and give them thumbs up and stuff like that. But um, put them back on their seats better than you found them. Right. And more proud and sure of themselves, right? That they could do it. So I think that experience shaped me in a way that where I learned that it was not just pushing papers and looking at reports, but it was building an operation, not just that though, but a structure,
Mhm.
a process. And you could actually do things that created a culture, right? And that culture would drive your success,
Yeah.
right?
So
Uh,
for a frame of reference, real quick. So you started, was it right out of college that you started at the, okay.
yeah,
So you would have been how old at the time when you took on building a 300 seat center?
I was in my 30s.
Okay. So like early 30s
Yeah,
ish? Okay.
yeah. I had some other jobs before then, but yeah, this is my
Yeah.
first call center job. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So all of that set me up for some other challenges. Outbound telemarketing was just nothing but fun for me. It was a game. All right. The game of tweaking the script and getting to say exactly the right words that would get the most people to say yes. All right. And and it was a craft. It was an art, but we had clients walking in and out, and gosh, I could tell you stories of new supervisors doing whack things, that you just never imagine. I'll tell you one. I had a very small bathroom. It was the only bathroom on the floor, and I had a supervisor who used to strip down to his underwear, all right, in the bathroom and do push-ups before we opened every day. He was a kind of a military guy, and that was
Okay.
his mojo,
Yeah.
but I had to take him aside and say, you know what? You need to do your exercises someplace less public. It's like, but but those are like the kind of people that I was working with. Like they had no sense, right, of you know getting being professional and all of that. But uh, my next big step was a big one. It went from a small company to a big ass company by the name of Ticketmaster.
Hmm.
All right, and back in 1995, Ticketmaster was the biggest name in ticketing, but they were also, for sure, the most hated.
Yeah.
All right. Because service fees were in the headlines. Pearl Jam from Seattle, of course, was fighting them publicly, and we heard it over the phone. Our agents took the brunt of it. But, the challenge kind of hooked me. And there I was in Seattle with my 200 artsy fartsy agents that were all very creative and went to the art school, and most of them were on Pearl Jam side. And didn't mind saying that to the customers either. Um, so, I had to take the approach, that um, the headlines are the headlines. We can't change them.
Hmm.
Now, but we can change how people feel about it when they call us. And I just took to uh, I guess my mantra was, we're going to answer those complaints with service,
Yeah.
right? With great service. We're going to be professional. We're going to be positive, and we're going to be proud to work at Ticketmaster. All right. Um, and we will put to rest any complaint that we provide shitty service. All right. Um, as Pearl Jam says we do, all right, by providing something different. All right. And believe it or not, it created kind of a sense of pride in the call center. And we felt ourselves pushing back against the establishment and what other people were saying about us. It was a great challenge. I built my first QA program there, first local, um, and then scraped my way up to national. All right. It eventually became global. Um, and as a director of QA and training, we eventually standardized our quality process across all the channels and the countries, and we did improve the satisfaction dramatically. Um, I would say my takeaway in those years, and just as a leader, as I developed even more of my leadership skills, was that you can only control the things you can control, right? You can't fix every system. You can't unpublish that article in the newspaper. You can't make Pearl Jam fans like you. But you can improve the quality of every call. All right. And you can improve um, every coaching moment. So it was quite a journey from me. And I'll say a bit more about Ticketmaster while I'm here.
Yeah.
It was quite a journey for me, from being a local call center manager to finally becoming in charge of QA for the world, of Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
And it took a lot more time than I ever thought. I mean, I was so impatient, right? But I'll tell you a story. So I had written out a whole book, of QA standards and how it was exactly that we were going to run our QA program. And my regional director was 100% behind it. We had this conference coming up, and he wanted me to bring copies of my QA program, 3 copies, and to give them to these 3 ladies who were also contact center leaders, but in much bigger centers. And he wanted me to show them, that. So I printed up 3 very nice packets, and I put their names on it and wrote a nice little note. I waited until just the right moment, all right, to give this to them, where, they could have it. I could have a chance to tell them what it was and all of that. So sure enough, there was a break in the meetings, and I caught up with them, and I said, "Hey, take a look at this. This is what we're doing in Seattle. It's a really great QA program. Rob asked if I might give it to you and you could take a look at it. And they were like, yeah, we could do that. Right. So off they went with their little packets, so I went back, I collected my stuff. On my way out the door, Fred, I saw all 3 packets sitting in the wastebasket.
Oh,
All right. So, yeah. So, next, later on, my boss says, well, how'd that go? So I can only tell the truth.
right.
And, his response was, that's the reason that you're going to be here a lot longer than they are,
Mm.
which turned out to be the fact. All
Yeah.
right. Um,
Yeah.
the, one of the other things that happened in Ticketmaster years, and there's actually 2 more stories in here, Fred, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The we were at a point where all the call centers were in the local offices, right?
Mhm.
In all the cities, right? And there was the um, there was the administrative side of the office, and there was the call center side of the office. And some of
Right.
these places, they had gigantic doors that the agents could not cross the line, and so forth. Um, the But if you're going national, you're going to have to, the plan was to pull those call centers out of the local offices and consolidate them into larger locations, right? Into national call center locations. And, we were putting together, 2 or 3 or 4 of them, putting them into the economic development areas, which is a whole nother story in and of itself. Lauren going around the world and deciding where we're going to put call centers. Um, the, uh, um, the, uh, but once the call centers were no longer in the offices, then we started getting way more heat from the GMs for, any kind of service failures, and because
Right.
it wasn't right under their nose and they couldn't just walk down the hall and so forth. So we created a contest and called it Star Search. All right.
Okay.
Of all things, right? Retro. All right.
Yeah.
And we had 7 or 8 teams that were each in the national call centers. And I think we had an international call center in there, and then we had purchased another company, and their companies were in the mix. So the, 8 times a quarter, we would get on a conference call, and I would have the GMs come onto the call as judges,
Okay.
and I would say, to Judge Bob, would say, okay, Bob, we have 8 calls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. Which center shall we hear first? Now, center number 2. Okay. For center number 2, we have 3 calls recorded at random. We want to hear call number A, B, or C. And they say, B. All right. So off we go. And I'd say, here's the name of the agent. What's the call's about? Off the call would go. They'd listen to the call. Each of the 3 judges would give a score for different categories and so forth. Right. So at the end of this, so this thing would just grew legs. All right. It became the most popular. And when can I be a Star Search judge and all of that? And at the end of it, the winning team got possession of the traveling trophy with their name engraved on it. Okay. A gigantic banner. All right. To hang up in their call center that they got to keep. Right. As well as a big party to throw and so forth. It became the thing that kind of tied us all together, and turned into something that changed the minds of our detractors,
Mhm.
which were the local GMs, right? But also lit a fire under our own, agents and supervisors, because they had something that they were shooting for. And then one other story for Ticketmaster, then we'll move on. But the we wanted to um, do something to get the agents to be excited about providing even better service. So I started looking into it. Turns out that the only surveys that we were putting out were for people who had placed orders over the internet, right?
Right.
Uh, and so those are the only ones being surveyed. So we had no feedback from customers, right? So I got with marketing and said, "Yeah, we got to get in on this game. We have to know, right?" So we got into the middle of that. We deduped the list and made sure that the survey frequency was right according to that. But we put out um, uh, about 3,500 survey um, invites a month. Probably got back maybe 5% of that, maybe 10%. We did pretty good. But here's the trick. By the time we got into the groove of that, every site director, every manager, every supervisor, every agent, they all knew their survey scores.
Yeah.
Every one of them. And we used that data and built a whole world-class service training program behind it, of course, right? But that data drove improvement in our CSAT scores improved by 40 points.
Wow.
Crazy stuff. So like if you're a new person to a call center, try this, okay? Take over the wallpaper of your agent screens, right? It's on your server, right? You can push out whatever image on your agent screens that you want, right? So every day we put out a different image on the screens, and guess what we put out there? Survey comments with agents' names, right? Survey scores for certain agents, survey scores for certain teams, which call center was ahead, all right, and had the best survey scores, and which ones were in second place. But if they tried a little harder, they might just be able to do it, But there was a whole training program that went behind that as well that I partnered with. It really, I give credit to all the other, people in the organization, but the visibility shifted shifted the accountability from management to the front line, right? And it changed how agents viewed their roles as agents and goals. Fred, I knew that we had won. All right. The day that I walked into the break room and heard the agents arguing with each other over which ones had the highest survey scores.
Yeah. Yep.
You
Yeah.
know, and it wasn't about the scores anymore.
No.
It was about the pride and the motivation, and it turned into a culture driver, right? And rather than something that was used as a weapon, against the agents.
Right.
So that's Ticketmaster. And I'm very proud of the things that we got to do there. And hopefully some takeaways, to your listeners for, things that they could do, just to inspire their teams, to even better, despite what Pearl Jam may say, right? So while at Ticketmaster, we used a QA platform that was built by Hewlett Packard, of all things, right? I believe it's still on the market, called Qfinity. And I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but I actually became that customer, the one that called them all the time and said, "You need to make it do this. You need to make it do that. Why can't it do this?" Um,
Yeah.
and eventually they finally said, "Shut up. Fine. Just come work for us then." All right. So I think I thought, well, that sounds like fun. All right. So I moved to Dallas. So yuck. So I moved to Dallas and joined Hewlett Packard and was a senior product manager. And my role flipped from using QA technology to designing it.
Right.
And improving recording and analytics and scoring systems. And, I think because of my operational experience, my edge was knowing what the leaders and coaches and agents actually needed to do to succeed. All right.
Yeah.
We made a lot of improvements. The work did lead to a couple of patents with my name on it, which was kind of cool.
Very cool.
And we developed a platform so that this is super cool. Like in the monitoring form, when the agent opened the monitoring form and they looked at their score for a question, and it would say, "Here's your score, and here's your score for the last 30 days, and here's the score of your team for the last 30 days, and oh, by the way, there's a survey question about that too, and here's your score for that." All right. So it became like much easier to coach, agents when you had all the information, there and all in all right places. I kind of came to a point. Well, first of all, the company got bought by another company, and they didn't have much interest, really, in going much further with that product. Sadly, because I thought it was a really good one. So I saw the writing on the wall, and one of my former leaders from Ticketmaster asked me to come join him, working as leading QA and training again, at one of the big 3 credit bureaus. So I landed myself in a regulated industry, um, and I thought this is really going to be great. Um, um, but what I walked into was a very outdated system. Um,
Right.
And they had one of the legacy QA products, which I shall not name, but deserves to be named, that had a phonetic a phonetic transcription, which was horrible.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you know what's wrong with it? It's like it never brought up all the instances where an agent actually said a certain thing. All right. And we were constantly being tagged by the federal regulators that would come down on us saying, "How come you didn't catch this call?" And we go, "Well, it didn't show up in the report." Well, that's because it was being stored phonetically, right? And not as a speech to text transcript. But so it was a bad recorder, weak transcription, poor reporting. And oddly enough, they had about 20% of their work was back office, of course. All right. Maybe I think it might even be more of that. But we didn't have screen capture. So we couldn't see how well they were doing. So it was like no QA on them then. All right. And it really taught me the value of screen capture, by the way. Later on down the road, that kind of did come in handy. But and I would say this to anybody that was looking for a solution. Think about your back office, and how it is you're going to monitor them. So you just focus on what you can control. I strengthened QA, modernized training, kept compliance high despite the techno challenges. And if I were talking to someone who is new to call centers, this is what I would say. And I think this kind of, from all my experiences, but especially this one, include the back office in your QA footprint. Your QA footprint has to extend to every customer touch point, whatever it is. All right. And you need to find whatever technology that you need in order to monitor that properly. All right. If it touches the customer, it matters. All right. And then you need to organize workflows so that when people make mistakes, they end up being the one to make the correction. All right. We had a horrible problem with mistakes that agents would make, but then we would have to, fight people kicking and screaming, all right, to go fix their mistakes.
Right.
So I said this to that, whose responsibility it is to fix the mistake? The person who made it. And who the boss of the person who made it is? It's their supervisor. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So that makes it their job. So we turned it around, got rid of the fix mistakes department, right? And put the fixing of mistakes back into the operation. All right. Where the supervisors had to go after the agents, to show them how it should have been done in the first place and have them correct the record so that they were the right way. So, the other thing I guess I would say, to someone new, would be to, be using all the right tools, end-to-end speech to text. I'd be using an omni channel capture, and analytics, that surface risks. Um, uh, Leaders can't fix things that the tools don't uncover. All right. And you're not going to pick it up by just walking around the floor and asking questions and trying to gain it by osmosis. All right. Yeah.
Especially there's no floors left. I mean,
Yeah.
well, people are coming back to office. That's a different conversation. But
Yeah.
fundamentally, you're
Right.
like in a hybrid, if not completely remote environment, anyways.
Right.
So, like you said, if you don't have visibility, how would you possibly know?
Yeah, exactly. I think probably a good place to point out that there are some ridiculously cool solutions out there right now that, make a person sitting at home feel like they are sitting in an office. And if you have agents at home, you are nuts not to buy something like that, and to use it. And there's some great stuff. Fred can hook you up. I can hook you up. All right, into some solutions, that will make your work at home agents feel like they belong again. All right, inside. So, the anyway, I mean, all of that. I think that, my advice would be that, I've never seen a problem in a call center, that wasn't a problem with the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can't automate your way out of a culture problem.
Yeah.
Never can. All right. Because leaders set the tone. Um, and, um, and leaders, who, uh, act like leaders and do leadership things together, with their folks are going to succeed. How are we doing time wise? I have more stories.
We are good. The
Really?
question is, how did you get here, though? How close are we
We're
to?
right. We'll come back to it then. All right. From uh, from from the credit bureau, I went to work for Deloitte,
Okay.
and so I was a contact specialist master, uh, large organizations modernizing. Um, what a really great group of people to work for. And, they were smart, respectful. And I had a pretty good niche there. I managed some BPO vendors, made sure that the outsourced teams were matching, what the clients, were expecting.
Yep.
Um, I was the guy to go to when things went sideways. Um, and what I really kind of loved most about that environment was the, building the quality frameworks that actually worked and systems that changed behavior and improved outcomes and not just producing fluffy, um, PowerPoints. Um,
Right.
After Deloitte, it made sense for me to build something of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became my own consulting company and, working alongside partners like Cloud Tech Gurus, has kept me close to the industry, which is why you see a lot of me, Fred, because I like being close to the industry. Um, I love being focused on helping others stop guessing about quality and start managing with intent. How are we doing time wise now?
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
That's okay. So, to take us back, you were in your 20s out of college. You fell into a center, but it was a leadership role, right? But
Hmm.
junior leadership, and that's where you got hooked, right?
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
through multiple climbs up corporations, you ended up landing in consulting, in one of the big four, right? Big four-ish, and then you were like, well, time to go. Time to do it myself, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome. I and there's all kinds of paths in here, but none of us ever predicted, hey, I'm gonna come out of school and be in call centers. Yeah. Especially back when we were doing it, it was such a niche thing. I mean, most people associated call centers to telemarketing. I
Right.
mean, when we were growing up, that's no one ever considered, a service organization as a call center.
Right.
At least I hadn't ever heard of it before that way.
Right.
Um, that's an awesome journey, and I'm sure you've got a ton of stories, and we may actually get into it in the question part. Now we're just going to talk. Here's the conversational part. So, let's jump in. What today keeps you up at night when it comes to contact centers in our, in our space, in our practice?
It is a trend towards the depersonalization of service
Okay.
in my mind,
Okay.
not just for customers, but for the people who deliver it. That with AI changing everything in the call center, it's automating routine work, it's writing responses, it's analyzing sentiment, and all of that has value. But I think the risk is that in our rush to make service faster and cheaper, that we may inadvertently strip out the human connection that makes it so meaningful.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that many people that are listening to this will relate to calling companies and feeling that they were just a number and not a person, uh, and that they didn't really get to tell their story. They
Right.
didn't get to feel empathized on, all right, or told sorry to, right? um, and the irony, I think, of all that is that customers will always remember how a person made them feel and not how quickly AI handled their case.
Right.
So when you take the human layer out, I think that there's a risk of losing loyalty, trust, and culture. Um, so what keeps you up at night isn't AI itself, but I think how it could be misused. All
Yeah.
right. Um, if we don't protect the human role in customer service, we might just end up as centers full of data, um, but yet without a heart and a human connection. And I applaud the companies that have taken that vision to heart and have made it their point to um, uh, nurture a human connection between them, all right, and their customers.
Yeah. So let's double click on that a little bit. I don't disagree, right? I mean, you and I have had plenty of conversations, and I've spent a lot of years around machine learning, and now AI in its current
Hmm.
form.
Yeah,
Uh, so I y- y- there's no question in my mind that we will always need human agents, right?
right,
And the question is where do we land, right? What percentage can and should be automated, which I think is your point. Not
right,
just what can, but what should is the critical piece, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. The AI should be used to fill the gaps and to help the agent do their job even better, right? To come into a call fully informed and aware and knowing what to do and even guided, all right, along the way throughout the call, all right? Um, Nothing, I mean, it'd be the same thing as a supervisor leaning over your shoulder, all right? Um, and the other thing, though, that where I see the great benefit, I didn't mean to poo-poo AI, but in reality, the great advantage is simply the ability to summarize a whole week's worth of conversations, all right, into a sentence that an executive can understand and do something about. All
Yeah.
right. Um, and that is the magic of it all. All right. Um, and if if I were helping you decide upon a QA solution to buy tomorrow, you better be sure that I would see to it that I recommended something that had AI an element to it, um, at least to score all the calls, all right? Um, or to dive deep into what the calls are about, or to alert the agent, which agent is having some difficulty, or to tell the manager what the calls are about today. You know, the uh, those are the things that really, you know, should be, leveraged, using the technology. Um, just don't lose the human voice in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Well, I've talked quite a bit about this. I think what we're going to see is the complexity of the calls that the agents are actually handling is going to significantly increase, which means that the
Yeah.
quality of the agent is going to have to increase, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
quality and training are a critical piece to that.
Right.
As is well, culture always was, right? When you and
Mhm.
I ran centers, even back before we had all these tools, it was always about, leading the people, to whatever outcomes.
Mhm.
The KPIs were, what came after
Right.
we, right?
Right.
Um, yeah. So do you see, I mean, do you see any different? Do you see it going the same way?
Yeah. I see it saying going exactly the same way. So if you were considering an update to your QA solutions, my advice would be don't go it alone. Right. You probably don't know which vendors to consider. Leverage some expertise,
Yeah.
perhaps an external guide, and uh, perhaps someone with no other skin in the game except your success.
Yeah.
Um, your best ROI is not staff reduction. Your best ROI is always better service.
Yeah.
Right. Quicker service, more efficient, first call resolution. All right. Customer sentiment and customers running back to you because of what a great job you did. So don't fall for the solution provider's imaginary ROI that you're going to be able to afford this because you're going to need 20% less of your agents and all of that. Decide that later, for Christ's sake. All right. Put the thing in and use it and develop it, and then make that decision. All right. But don't hang your budget on that one. And the other thing I would say about it, Fred, is don't let your QA solution become IT's baby.
Hmm.
All right.
Right.
Um, it's This is the decision that determines your destiny, not theirs. All right. Um, and I've been in situations where IT was dictating to us how the solution could be configured, how it could be run, and so forth. Um, you be the one as the call center leader to say these are the requirements. It doesn't matter how good of a deal or how much how or who you know. Um, these requirements are the ones that we absolutely must get in our next solution, and we're going to go with whatever solution is going to do us the best job and not the one that fits into your infrastructure the best.
Yeah. Absolutely. So for the next, I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball, and talk to me about 5 years from now. What do you see in the space? People, technology, what's shifted? Where do you see 5 years?
Well, I've kind of already said a little bit about that. It's not the technology itself, but hopefully how the technology is being used. AI automation analytics will continue to be getting more accurate. It will deliver deeper and deeper insights. That's certainly a given. Um, I don't think the winners will be the companies with the most tech, though. I think it'll be the ones that leverage it to improve CX and EX.
Yeah.
Right? If that isn't what you get out of it, then you're wasting your money. Right? The goal won't be to replace people. It should be to free them up to handle what only humans can do, and which specifically is empathy, right? Judgment and people connection. Um, and after you've attained that and you have all the bells and whistles in place, like I said, then it's time to consider the head counts. Um, in terms of QA, we're already seeing far less random sampling. Now we're up to 100% coverage for most of the interactions through AI assisted QA, and not just on voice, but across all the channels. Make sure your AI uh, goes into the back channels, right? I think we'll see QA teams evolving into more coaching and enablement teams, focus less on catching mistakes because the machine's going to catch all of those, and more on improving behavior and outcomes in real time. And it's the real time thing that's going to be a difference. It won't be, oh, this is a call that we listened to from 2 days ago and now we're going to talk about it. Right? It's going to be more, the call that you're on right now, you need to say this, and not that, or the machine's saying it to them. Right? The I think AI will also progress into the realm, and I can't wait to hear it and see it, for it to progress into the realm of really meaningful desktop process analytics. And I'd like to see it provide some agent desktop guidance, or at least, and some robotic process automation. Because that stuff's just killer stuff. I mean, and it speeds things along and helps the agent. The part that keeps me optimistic in all of this, I would say, is the best contact centers will finally start to treat EX as the key to great CX.
Yeah.
And they'll design standards and practices that support people instead of exhausting them, right? On both sides of the phone. So 5 years from now, the industry will have smaller headcount.
Mhm.
It will be stronger in capability. It will be more automated, um, but it'll be more human where it counts.
Okay. Nice. I like the optimistic view. So
Yeah.
since I've got you, there's a lot of people. There's always been this debate about the law of large numbers, right? When it comes to quality assurance, and analyzing, a percentage of, total number of interactions, right? So in your mind, and you know where I'm going, because this is something that's under the hood. Not a lot of people talk openly about this, but not everybody recommends 100% analyzation. And a lot of people say it's overkill because the law of large numbers, you won't really find anything new to learn out of the bottom. And I've heard up to 40%. Now, law of large numbers, maybe if it's an enormous center, but I think realistically, most centers, I could see that argument for 80 to that 20% differential, right? 80 to 100%. Um, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, yeah, and I think it depends on the industry.
Yeah.
Um, if you're in a regulated industry, medical, finance, insurance, you have no choice, 100%.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have a whole army of federal regulators that are watching you, and all it takes is a phone call from some customer to the CPFB or to somebody else
Yeah.
to say this wasn't fair, or I wasn't treated fairly, and you've got uh, a whole army of trouble breathing down your neck, and from your side of the business all you're going to hear is how come you didn't find that call. All right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
It,
so so you so in a regulated industry, I do think you need to be able to spot on, find every error or potential lawsuit or violation of any of that. But um, even in call centers that are making appointments or telemarketing, or the ones that are not regulated like that, I still see a value
yeah.
of recording everything. The God, we used to have to fight for like what was a statistically significant um, um, uh, sample size. You
Yeah.
know, I remember the argument was that, well, this is an insufficient sample size. So now we have people saying it is too much. All right, well, um, the uh, the beauty of it though is um, just because you have it all doesn't necessarily mean that you need to barrage your agents with it.
Right.
All right. That would be a mistake, right? Um, and it's certainly not, um, I think, good or fair, to the agents for you to just, pour through the database for all the mistakes and just lay it on them, mistake, 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 mistake on this, 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 and this. I mean, if you're going to lose agents right and left, you need to show them when they do it right and show them when they do it wrong. It needs to be balanced, right? Um,
Yep.
but um, you don't need to throw every example of their mistake at them. You
Right.
could show them one example, all right, or two, and but you could also point out that they get it right 75% of the time. So let's figure out what's stopping you this other 25% of the time. What's
Right.
tripping you up, so that we can get you closer to that. But the uh, I don't know. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious. It's
Yeah,
something that come up in technical conversations, right? The law of large numbers. Do we really need to run, and use tokens that much, or does it make sense to use a smaller number? The way I look at it is compute is similar to this. When you have enough power, it really doesn't matter. When the cost goes far enough down to zero, you might as well analyze 100%.
right.
Um, but I do understand the argument right now where you know, GPUs cost, tokens cost, a lot of this stuff. I mean, it does have a relative cost to it when you're talking about thousands of agents. A percentage, 10,
Absolutely. You
30,
know,
40
I
can
was
make
looking at a really cool solution though the other day, where really the benefit for the large gathering of information wasn't necessarily towards the agent, but it was toward management to be able to say, here's what's going on right now. All right.
Yep. Yep.
What people are talking about today. And those large data sets were built for that kind of analysis. So yeah.
Yeah. And modern technology is built for it as well.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
continue to improve and get better. So, if you were to talk to younger Lorne, or let's say some of my audience who are agents, supervisors, managers, um, what would what would you tell yourself or them, knowing what you know now?
Well, of course, never give up.
There you go.
You know? Um, the, uh, when I first started out, I sure thought I knew a lot more than I really did.
Yeah,
So my best advice is to come into situations asking, not telling, and learn the business before you try to fix it. So
yeah,
um, it builds your own credibility to be inquisitive, uh, not disagreeing with everything that just because you don't understand it, and striving to understand. All right. Um, uh, the everybody wants to jump straight into tools and dashboards and AI, but I think the real skill out there, and if you're, I would say to someone coming into this, um, the best skill you can have in this industry is understanding how people um, tick.
yeah,
You know, how to motivate people and make them feel that they are worthy and capable, and and how to communicate your belief that they can do what it is that you're asking them to do, right? Um, and that fits together with processes, and a sense of purpose. Um, I would encourage someone coming in to spend a lot of time, of course, with QA and training, right? To learn what that's all about. All right. Spend time with agents, spend time with workforce management, listen to calls, sit with supervisors, but really get it in your head what good sounds like. All right. And work with other people around you. All right. To come to that kind of, understanding. Um, there's a dozen books I could tell you to go read that would be very helpful. But I guess maybe finally I would say don't lose sight of the human side of the work, right? That some of the best leaders I've ever known weren't necessarily the smartest,
mhm,
all right? But they were the ones who cared enough to take the time uh, to teach, to coach, and to help people succeed. And I guess that's probably the thing that I would say to anyone coming in new, all right, into this. Um, your success as a leader is the success of your people,
yeah,
straight up. All right. And your job, right, as an up and coming leader is to help those people be the best versions of themselves in the production that they can possibly be. And quite honestly, so many times I found this to be true, that what you see in a person and what you tell them about themselves will inevitably come to be.
yeah. Mm, I like it. All right. So, one final question. If you could pick, you've seen quite a few of the episodes. I know you've been through the channel. If you could pick anybody to come on that you'd love to hear their journey, or you think they would be an interesting uh, contact journey for others to learn from and be inspired from, who would they be?
Well, you've had quite a few do um, all gurus, though, right?
No, no,
Oh,
no, no.
okay, okay. Um,
No, we got some coming up. It just so happened that a lot of them, happen to be partners of ours.
okay. Um, the Michael Madsen, you might want to, fascinating guy.
Yeah.
Um, the and his buddy Luke. I spend quite a bit of time with those guys. And That's all that comes to mind right now. I'm sorry.
If you think of one
Been,
later,
yeah,
definitely shoot it my way. I mean, we're always looking for fascinating stories.
yeah,
Luckily enough, after 30 years in this space, I kind
yeah.
of know a few. So, but I'm always looking for new ones. It's been a pleasure, Lauren. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, sharing your
Of
journey.
course.
I'm sure it'll inspire some folks out there. And great stories, man. And as always, for those people watching, we appreciate you and taking your time. I know this is long format, but we enjoy having these conversations, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Um,
Yeah,
Thanks
what a
again.
blast. Thank you for bringing me on, Fred. I really enjoyed the time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye for now.